said it feels we're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
And Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life. I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question.
It makes absolutely no sense. That is the Commonwealth grasping at straws. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's a duck.
We have the 8 letters. We've seen them. We've read them. We are using them. The genie cannot be put back in the bottle.
Yeah, LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned, we dive into the prime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL true crime, unveiling dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Peeling back the layers, exposed the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. Now we get out of your time, and don't look at the books. LTL true crime, go. We don't get live in the shine, but then I'm not talking about it in the food. I could go put in your bone. No pienso echarla. No pienso echarla. We got it done. Yeah, we get out of your time, and don't look at the books. I break down true crime, I'm done with dark realities every time. This is I break down true crime, I'm done with dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi.
Good Saturday morning. Welcome back to LTL True Crime. We are here. We're live on this Saturday. It is February 17, 2024. I want to welcome everybody back into this live show. If you're here live, you can chat there on the right-hand side of the screen. If you're watching this on replay, you can leave a comment. I appreciate to smash that thumbs up button as well. And we'll get into the show here. So I'm hoping that I can kind of pull this off the way that I want to present it. It's been in my mind for a couple of weeks, and it's just some of the things that I've looked at and compared as I've started to kind of dive back into the Brian Walshe case. We know that there's an upcoming hearing in March. I believe the date on that off the top of my head, if I can remember, is the 4th or the 5th. I think it's the 5th. And that's definitely a case I want to be covering here. And I will be out at that March 5th hearing. I think it's the 5th, last time I checked my calendar. But I wanted to go over, since obviously Karen Reed has been one of the primary focuses on my channel lately, and now diving back into the Brian Walshe case, I wanted to go over, some of the inconsistencies that I've seen, some of the very much consistencies in Brian Walshe's case versus Karen's case. And I just find a lot of things to be quite interesting in my opinion, and a little bit funny in my opinion. And I think one of the things that we have to think about when we start talking about this is we'll go over to TB Daily News, and the litigating factor in most of this is this person right here. And I want to take you over to a TB Daily News article here from Turtle Boy, and it's part 74 in the Canton cover-up. Michael Proctor violated at least 8 state police policies and procedures guidelines from the manual. And here's some of the things that were violated, in our opinion, in the investigation in the Karen Reed case. But it's funny that a lot of those things were used, and a lot of those policies and procedures were followed in Brian Walshe's case. And like I said, I've been kind of sitting back and thinking about this. I've talked about some of this on some of my previous streams, and we'll get into a little bit of this today. So what I want to first look at is Brian Walshe's, what I call a PCA. I think in Massachusetts, they call it a Statement of the Commonwealth, because we're a Commonwealth. But what I want to do is talk particularly this morning about the Google searches in Brian Walshe's case. And like I said, I've talked about this in some previous streams of, I don't know if you folks have read through this, but this is Brian Walshe's Commonwealth Statement of the Case, or a PCA. So what we'll do here is I've kind of highlighted, and I think it's funny that all those Google searches, and we'll see them, are such detailed in this document. All of those Google searches. So we start here on like page 3. Mr. Walshe's oldest child's iPad researched divorce. And it takes you down here a little bit more. Between 4:50 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. on January 1st, 2023, the oldest child's iPad conducted searches and visited websites on how to dispose of a human body. And how long does it take for a body to smell? And how long does it someone have to be missing to be declared dead? The iPad visited similar website shortly after 9:30 a.m. and continued making numerous searches till 2 p.m. The subject matter of the website searched for progressed from searching human decomposition to how effectively dispose of body parts and how to clean up a crime scene. And there's many examples of this through this entire statement from the Commonwealth. And we're going to look at Karen Reed's statement from the Commonwealth as well. Good morning, everybody. Welcome in. Good to see everybody here on this cold Saturday morning. Again, we're going to run through this. I hope it comes off the way that I want to portray it. I've had this kind of cycling through my mind the last couple of weeks, and I thought I'd give it a shot today. Good morning, everybody. Welcome in. So we go down a little bit further in Brian Walshe's PCA, and look at this. Bam! More Google searches. Mr. Walshe returns to Cohasset home at approximately 8:30 p.m. on January 1st, 2023, from 2 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. on January 2nd, 2023. The oldest child's iPad searched for and visited websites providing instruction how to clean blood and DNA from objects, how to remove SIM card from phones, and how to mix ammonia, and searches for an apartment complexes in Brockton, Mass. We go down a little bit further. During the afternoon on January 2nd, 2023, the oldest child's iPad continued to search and visited websites that details how long Lowe's maintains security videos. There's a lot of those how longs in this statement from the Commonwealth, huh? We know about a how long or a hoss long. How long apartment complexes keep surveillance videos and numerous articles about dismembering human body. You know, all those fun stuff that people just love to search. So we go on a little bit further. Page 3. Good morning, everybody. Welcome in. Page 3. From 1:18 a.m. to 7 a.m. on January 3rd, 2023, the oldest child's iPad again searched and visited websites that discussed the removal of odor of decomposing bodies. Aftermath.com, a company that cleans up crime scenes, how to detect blood using fluorescence, and how to remove blood stains from concrete. We're going to go a little bit further here and hear probably about some more Google searches. Look at this. Look at all these Google searches. Beginning in the evening of January 6, 2023, into January 7, 2023, investigators downloaded and searched in the digital devices that were provided by Mr. Walshe. Investigators were able to see the web history for the devices as well as their native location by data. By the evening of January 7, 2023, it became evident that Mr. Walshe had lied to police about his whereabouts on January 1st, 2023, and his oldest child's iPad had searched for and visited numerous websites about dismembering, decomposing of a body, disposing of a body. Data from Mr. Walsh's oldest child's cell phone also provided location data corroborated with store surveillance video that Mr. Walshe placed alone in Lowe's, where he brought items that would aid in the dismemberment of a human body and cleanup of a murder scene. The digital device also placed Mr. Walshe again, corroborated by surveillance video, at numerous dumpsters between January 1st and January 5th, 2023. Now, the green highlight here, we're going to get a little bit later into the presentation. So, I mean, there's, if I count them right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 incidences on this PCA that give very detailed information about Google searches. I just want to show you Karen Reed's. Let's pull Karen Reed's up. How many times, I've already kind of posed this question. How many times do you think Google searches were mentioned in Karen Reed's statement from the Commonwealth or the PCA? How many times do you think? I posed this question last night in my live. We'll scroll down. We'll keep going. We'll keep going. We'll keep going. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. Oh, we got one. We got one. The statement initially confused by Miss McCabe and Miss Roberts as they were unable to see Mr. O'Keefe's body lying in the snow. Miss McCabe stated that the defendant screamed to open the door and ran directly over to the body near the cluster of trees that laid on top of him for warmth and began CPR. Miss McCabe stated that the victim was lying on his back covered with approximately 6 inches of snow with his phone on the ground underneath him. The defendant yelled at Miss McCabe twice to Google, "How long do you have to be left outside to die from hypothermia?" So you're telling me, with the totality of the situation, with the 911 call that we've heard, not the official one that was released, and we know that the panic state that Karen was in, you can clearly hear it on that recording, the frantic nature of everything that has gone on in that last 24 hours, trying to save the life of John O'Keefe, giving CPR, and in the middle of all that frantic activity, meanwhile, in a blizzard, in January, that you're just going to look at someone and say, "Hey, can you pull your phone out and Google, how long do you have to be outside to die from hypothermia?" Does that make any sense to any of you? Does that really make any sense? Would your mind even be in that state? Okay. Let's listen to Brian Walsh's arraignment. And then I want to listen to Karen Reed's arraignment.
Land for the Commonwealth. The defendant is now before the
How
court charged
detailed
with
this is.
murder of his wife, Anna Walshe, as well as disinterring of a body. Anna was 39 years old and the mother of 3 children, 2, 4, and 6. Anna worked in Washington, D.C., splitting her time weekdays between D.C. during the week and staying in her house in Cohasset, where she lived with the defendant and their 3 kids.
Exactly, Brian.
On January 4th of 2023, Cohasset police received a call from her Washington,
Exactly.
D.C. employee indicating that she was missing. She was due to report to work on January 4th, but did not appear. She had a flight on January 3rd from Logan to D.C., which she did not board. Cohasset police went to their house at Chief Justice Cushing Highway for a well-being check. It was only at this time, when they met with the defendant, that he first reported his wife missing. Defendant stated his wife left the house at approximately 6 a.m. on January 1st, New Year's Day. He stated she took an Uber or a Lyft to go to the airport, that she was returning to DC for work. Records were checked and there were no Uber or Lyfts to that house on January 1st. Defendant said he had not spoken to his wife since the early morning hours on New Year's Day. Cohasset police were granted permission to ping on his phone to locate her or her phone. And his phone indicated that it was stationary in the area of the...
Listen how detailed it is that they talk about cell phones. They talk about searches. Why did it take Karen's attorneys to dig out all of the other information that we found out after the fact? Jen McCabe, Hoss Long the Dying Cold.
Cohasset house on New Year's Eve until 3:14 a.m. on January 2nd. There were no outgoing calls made at that time. At 3:14 a.m. on the 2nd, it was turned off. Defendant stated Anna should have been wearing a dress, a black jacket, hunter boots, watch, ring, as well as carrying a Prada purse. Defendant gave a timeline of 6 or 6:10 a.m. on the 1st when he last saw her. What I'd like to do now is just describe his actions in the days from January 1st. Defendant indicated on January 1st at 3 p.m. he did some errands, then he went to his mother's house in Swampscott, but got lost because he didn't have his phone. He said he knew he was lost when he saw the pirate ship on Route 1.
Which makes no sense to me, that you've gone to your mom's house 1,000 times and you don't know how to get to your mom's house without your phone. Okay, bro.
Stayed 15 minutes, then went to Whole Foods and CVS. Surveillance was checked and he did not enter either of those stores. On January 1st, defendant Googled using his son's iPad. Some of the searches are as follows. Keep in mind that the defendant said he left at 6 a.m. At 4:55 a.m. on January 1st, he searched how long before a body starts to smell. At 4:58 a.m., how to stop a body from decomposing. At 5:20 a.m., he searched how to embalm a body. At 5:47 a.m., 10 ways to dispose
Lots of Google information here, lots of searches.
of a dead body if you really need to. At 6:25 a.m. on the 1st, how long for someone to be missing to inherit. At 6:34 a.m. on the 1st,
Exactly,
can you
Mark.
throw away body parts? At 9:29 a.m., what does formaldehyde do? At 9:34 a.m. on the 1st, how long does DNA last? At 9:59 a.m., can identification be made on partial remains? At 11:34 a.m., dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. At 11:44, how to clean blood from wooden floor. At 11:56 on the 1st, luminol to detect blood.
It's a lot of detailed Google searches we're hearing about. Interesting.
At 1:08, what happens when you put body parts in ammonia? At 1:21 p.m., is it better to throw crime scene clothes away or wash them? Those were on the January 1st. There was also information gained from the defendant's phone, which showed on January 2nd, he was at Home Goods in Norwell, where he purchased 3 rugs. There were also more Google searches on January 2nd.
More Google searches.
At 12:45 p.m., hacksaw, best tool to dismember. At 1:10 p.m., can you be charged with murder without a body? At 1:14 p.m., can you identify a body without?
Yeah, that's a
broken
shark with dead eyes.
On January 2nd, following those, the defendant was seen on surveillance at the Home Depot in Rockland.
Surveillance video.
And checking the surveillance.
We know about some surveillance video that the library video that's just 2 minutes of it just went missing. I mean, show the tail light. Karen's case.
Defendant is observed on a security camera pushing a cart. Items included cleaning products, mops, brushes, tape, top.
Yeah, it's Google Mania.
A Tyvek suit with boot covers, buckets, goggles, baking soda, a hatchet. He had a face mask and rubber gloves on at the time he was pushing the cart in Home Depot at 5:32.
All brought to you by one of the lead investigators, one of the Mass State Police lead investigators, and I'll let you all type the name in the chat. But we know who the lead Mass State Police investigator was on this case. Isn't it amazing? The detail of report, the Google searches, all the items that were bought, all that video and surveillance that just lines up everything. Why is it all here? It's all here in this case. But in Karen's case, it's all over the place. It's all over the place. And that's the same lead investigator, state police investigator, in Karen's case. I mean, how can that happen? Did he forget processes?
Two, he was seen at the Derby Street in Hingham, now removing the gloves and the mask. Data from his phone also tracked his whereabouts on January 3rd. Locations were traveled at 4:27 on January 3rd to an apartment complex in Abington. Surveillance shows the defendant's Volvo, as well as a male fitting the defendant's appearance, exit a car near the dumpster. He walks to the dumpster carrying a garbage bag. He's leaning, and it appears to be heavy as he has to heft it into the dumpster. He walks to the dumpster with the garbage bag and leaves it. On 4:48, he hit another complex in Abington, and at 5:10 p.m., cell phone shows records at another apartment in Brockton. Video shows a party consistent with his appearance and his Volvo. Again, he discarded items in the dumpster. On January 3rd, that same day, at 1:02 p.m., he did some more Google searches. What happens to hair on a dead body? At 1:13 p.m., what is the rate of decomposition of a body found in a plastic bag compared to on a surface in the woods? At 1:20 p.m., can baking soda mask or make a body smell good? On January 4th, the following day, the defendant went to Home Goods and TJ Maxx. He purchased towels as well as bath mats and men's clothing. At 4:15 that day, on the 4th, he went to Lowe's where he purchased squeegees and a trash can. On January 4th, when Cassett went to the house on the well-being check, officers observed his Volvo with seats down and a plastic liner in the back of the car. The next day, a view of the Volvo showed his seats folded down, floor mats with some dirt, and the carpet appeared to show fresh vacuum streaks.
I want to go back here just a little bit about the SUV. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit here.
On January 4th, when Cassett police went to the house on the well-being check, officers observed his Volvo with seats down and a plastic liner in the back of the car. The next day, a view of the Volvo showed his seats folded down, floor mats with some dirt, and the carpet appeared to show fresh vacuum streaks. When asked about the liner, the defendant said he threw it in the trash. Chemists later analyzed the car, and there was present blood in the car. On January 5th.
So doesn't that sound like that was all done at Brian Walsh's house? All that processing, all that observation. What happened in Karen's case? And we'll get a little bit more into this processing of the SUVs. It's very interesting. It sounds like a lot of that processing and observations happened at Brian's house. But why was it in Karen's case situation, car gets confiscated at her dad's house in Dighton, Massachusetts, loaded onto a flatbed, brought back 31 miles to Canton, Massachusetts, to only sit 3 days in the custody of the Canton Police Department? You have the potential murder weapon that murdered a Boston police officer, and you wait 3 days to process it. And we'll get into some of the inconsistencies about the processing a little later in the program too. But why is that? Why didn't they observe or process anything at Karen's dad's house? Her family's house? Just something seems off. It's weird. I think you're sensing my sarcasm.
Review of the data from defendant's phone showed his phone traveled at 8 a.m. first to his daycare and then to Swampscott, where his mother resides. The phone traveled to the complex where his mother lives at 9:30 a.m., went for about 5 minutes around the building to the southeast corner. In the southeast corner of that complex is where there is a dumpster. The dumpster was later secured and searched. On January 8th, police and crime scene services searched the house in Cohasset. They found blood in the basement, a knife with the presence of blood. The knife was damaged. A second knife was also found in that basement. In addition, there was heavy-duty large top plastic liners purchased from that Home Depot trip. As part of the investigation, police checked for activity on honest credit cards, banks, flights, trains. There was no activity since she was last seen on January 1st. Police also tried to track down what happened to the bags that the defendant was seen throwing in the dumpster earlier. This was over in Abington. These bags and what was in them were already picked up and taken to a location for shredding and being incinerated. By the time police located that, they were already destroyed. However, investigators did secure and search the dumpsters from defendant's mother's complex in Swampscott. It was searched at a transfer station in Peabody. Investigators recovered 10 trash bags. Inside the trash bags, many of these items contained stains consistent with blood, in fact, a lot. Among the items secured were towels, rags, slippers, tape, Tyvek suit, gloves, cleaning agents, carpets, rugs, hunter boots, Prada purse, a COVID-19 vaccine card in the name of Anna Walshe, a hacksaw, a hatchet, and some cutting shears. The purse and boots were described as what Anna was last seen in. A portion of the rug was heavily stained with red-brown stains. The substance was consistent with also having baking soda on. There was a portion of a necklace consistent with one that Anna had been seen wearing in photos. The state crime lab performed testing on certain selected items that were
this dude's crazy.
Trash bags. There was human blood found on them, and then they were sent for DNA testing. The findings are as follows. On the slippers in the interior, Anna and Brian Walshe were contributors to the DNA on those slippers, which had blood on them. On the exterior, Anna and Brian Walshe contributed to the DNA found on those slippers.
But see how all detailed this investigation is? So detailed, and everything is so scattered in Karen's case. All the evidence is all scattered. We don't have all the data completely yet. Verizon, Google, all messed up. DNA samples here, they're over there. We don't know if they're processed. The laboratory, this, that. You know what I'm getting at here?
The Tyvek suit. On the interior cuffs, Anna and Brian Walsh contributed to the DNA that was left on them. On the exterior left pant leg, Anna Walsh was contributed to the DNA. On the interior right sleeve, Anna Walsh.
That's a cold
was,
shark right there.
A contributor to the DNA that was found on the Tyvek suit. There was tissues which found that Anna Walsh contributed to the DNA. There was one other earlier Google search.
Yes.
Which would be of note. On December 27th.
Friday.
Defendant Googled.
Thank
What's
you,
the
Tom.
best state to divorce for a man? Rather than divorce, it is believed that Ryan Walsh dismembered Anna Walsh and discarded her body. The bags were later discarded in Swampscott and contained Anna's property and the items used to clean up, as well as the DNA that was left behind. The Commonwealth is asking that the defendant be held without bail for the murder of his wife.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right. Now let's go to Karen's arraignment.
This past Friday into Saturday, January 29th, at approximately 6:04 a.m., the Canton Police Department received a 911 call from a woman reporting a male party subsequently identified as the decedent and victim, Mr. John O'Keefe, who was found in the snow at a residence on Fairview Road. At the time of the 911 call, there was heavy snow and the temperature was in the teens. Officers Saraf and Mullaney of the Canton Police were dispatched to the scene along with Canton Fire and EMS. Officer Saraf was the first to arrive on scene and observed three females waving at him. If you were standing on the roadway looking at the property, the three females were in the left corner of that property. Officer Saraf observed the victim lying on the ground as two of the females were performing CPR. The three females on scene were subsequently identified as the defendant before you, Ms. Karen Reed, Ms. Jennifer McCabe, and Ms. Kerry Roberts. Officer Saraf observed the victim to be cold to the touch, no signs of breath, and returned to his cruiser to retrieve his AED device. At this time, Canton Fire and EMS arrived on scene and took over first aid. Paramedics then transported the victim to the Good Samaritan Hospital in Brockton, where he was determined to be deceased several hours later. Several detectives from the Canton Police arrived on scene moments after the 911 call. They began to search within the snowbanks for any evidence, at which point they discovered a broken cocktail style glass and multiple patches of red substance that appeared to be blood in the vicinity. They secured the glass and 6 blood samples from that area as evidence. Troopers from the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office.
Where's the glass? I don't know. It seems like that broken cocktail glass got a lot of pieces floating around everywhere. We're going to talk a little bit about that when we get back to Karen's statement from the Commonwealth.
Specifically, Sergeant Buchanan and Trooper Proctor then arrived at the scene, began to process. They also spoke to several witnesses. Specifically, they spoke to Ms. Jennifer McCabe. She stated that the evening prior, she and some friends were at the Waterfall bar located within the town of Canton. She stated she and her husband arrived there at approximately 9 p.m. At approximately 11 p.m., the victim and the defendant arrived at the Waterfall bar together. She indicated to the troopers that the victim and the defendant had been in a dating relationship for the last 2 years, and that the defendant often stayed at the victim's house most nights, is what she described it as. She observed the defendant walk into the bar holding a glass cup from C.F. McCarthy's, which is a bar located across the street from the Waterfall, with a clear liquid inside and what she believed to be a vodka soda drink. She observed the victim to be wearing a baseball hat, jeans, and sneakers. The victim and defendant had been at C.F. McCarthy's across the street before coming to the Waterfall bar, as I stated. She stated that the victim and defendant appeared to be in a good mood, did not observe any argument amongst the two, described the atmosphere within the bar as friendly amongst the patrons. She indicated as the bar began to close down, everyone was invited back to that residence on Fairview Road. She observed the defendant and the victim leave the Waterfall bar together. As the group was exiting, the victim texted Ms. McCabe, where to, at 12:14 a.m. She replied with the address on Fairview Road. At 12:18, 4 minutes later, the victim called her to ask where specifically The house was located on Fairview Road. While inside the residence, she observed a black SUV arrive in front of the residence on Fairview Road. She observed this from the front door. She texted the victim at 12:31 a.m., hello, and at 12:40 a.m. texted, pull up behind me. She then observed the black SUV move from the initial place the vehicle stopped on the street near the driveway and then proceeds to the left side of the property. At 12:45 a.m., she texted the victim hello again and then observed the black SUV drive away. She stated that they discovered the victim in the area where she last observed the SUV on the left side of the property as facing from the street. And at approximately 4:53 a.m., she received a phone call from the defendant looking for the victim. She indicated that the defendant was distraught and drove to her house. The defendant indicated to Ms. McCabe that she last remembered seeing the victim at the Waterfall Bar. Ms. McCabe then informed the defendant that she observed the victim and her leave the bar together. Ms. McCabe then drove the defendant's vehicle from her house back to the victim's because the defendant was too hysterical to drive and had the other friend, Ms. Carrie Roberts, follow them. While driving to the victim's house, the defendant stated to Ms. McCabe, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Ms. McCabe stated that the defendant told her about a cracked taillight on her vehicle. Once they arrived at the victim's home, the defendant had Ms. McCabe looked at that same cracked taillight. Ms. McCabe described the passenger side right rear taillight as cracked. They then both entered Ms. Roberts' vehicle to look for the victim, with the defendant seated in the back as Ms. Roberts drove and Ms. McCabe was seated in the front passenger seat. Ms. McCabe stated that they turned onto Fairview Road from Chapman Street. At the time, it was snowing heavily, creating poor visibility. Ms. McCabe stated that just prior to the residence on Fairview Road, there was a cluster of trees, and immediately the defendant stated that she saw the victim. Ms. McCabe and Ms. Roberts were not able to see the victim and were initially confused by the defendant's statement. Ms. McCabe stated that Ms. Roberts began wiping snow off of the victim as the defendant laid on top of him for warmth and then began CPR. The troopers then proceeded to the Good Samaritan Hospital to view the victim.
So, where in the statement, where in Lowley's statement here was in that frantic moment? Remember, in that frantic moment of everything that's going on, I mean, wouldn't this be a key, one of the sticking points for the Commonwealth? Why was this not mentioned? I mean, he's essentially reciting the Commonwealth statement here, but this information's left out. Wouldn't that be the sticking point? You know, out of all of this, the defendant yelled to Miss McCabe twice, Google, how long do you have to be left outside to die from hypothermia? I don't know. Maybe I missed it. Did I miss something? We can go back and listen to it again. I don't know. Maybe I missed something there. Let's go back about a minute.
Street
Did I miss something?
It was snowing heavily, creating poor visibility. Ms. McCabe stated that just prior to the residence on Fairview Road, there was a cluster of trees, and immediately the defendant stated that she saw the victim. Ms. McCabe and Ms. Roberts were not able to see the victim and were initially confused by the defendant's statement. Ms. McCabe stated that Ms. Roberts began wiping snow off of the victim as the defendant laid on top of him for warmth and then began CPR. The troopers then proceeded to the Good Samaritan Hospital to view the victim. They observed approximately.
It says it right here. I mean, I'm literally reading. The statement initially confuses Mr. McCabe and Miss Roberts as they were unable to see Mr. O'Keefe's body lying in the snow. Miss McCabe stated that the defendant screamed to open the door and ran directly over to the body near the cluster of trees that laid on top of him for warmth and began CPR. Lally said that. But where is the Ms. McCabe stated that the victim was lying on his back, covered in approximately 6 inches of snow with the phone to the ground underneath him. The defendant yelled to Ms. McCabe twice, Google, how long does it have to be left outside to die from hypothermia? I mean, that to me would be the biggest sticking point here. I mean, this would implicate a lot of guilt. Why isn't that brought up? Why is that left out? We skip over that and we go to the hospital now. I mean, is it making sense to you? It doesn't make sense to me. And that's what I'm saying, you know, as we know, is this twisted tale of lies that's unfolded. Commonwealth's had to change their statement many times. And we know all the things that had to change. We'll play a little bit more of this. I'm not going to play the entire hearing, but I have more things that I want to get to.
6 bloodied lacerations varying in length on his right arm. The cuts extending from his forearm to his bicep. Both of the victim's eyes were swollen shut and black and blue. They observed a cut to the right eyelid area of the victim. Observed his clothing to be blue jeans, an orange t-shirt, a long sleeve shirt, and boxer shorts that were saturated with blood and vomit. They observed one black Nike sneaker with a white Nike logo on the sides belonging to the victim. On the 31st, the troopers attended the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. The doctor performed the autopsy. Dr. Scorti below advised of several abrasions to the right forearm, 2 swollen black eyes, a small cut above the right eye, a cut to the left side of his nose, approximately 2-inch laceration to the back of his head, multiple skull fractures that resulted in bleeding, and further advised that the victim's pancreas was a dark red color, indicating that hypothermia was a contributing factor.
Got punched.
On January 29th, the troopers conducted several other interviews, including Ms. Roberts. During the course of Ms. Roberts' interview, she indicated that she was initially contacted by the defendant, Ms. Reed, at 5 a.m., that she answered the phone to hear the defendant state, "John's dead. Terry, I wonder if he's dead. It's snowing. He got hit by a plow." The troopers also on the 29th proceeded to the defendant's parents' home in Dighton, Massachusetts, where they located the involved.
This is important. I want to hear this because I want to go back to this as well, too, about the processing of Karen's vehicle versus the processing, and like I said earlier, in Brian Walsh's vehicle. And I just want to find my spot here in the PCA. So let's listen here, and then I'll go back to the Commonwealth statement and Karen Reed's, and we'll listen to Brian Walsh's. I'll pull up the statement, the Commonwealth statement, and that as well, too. So this is important. Let's listen.
The troopers also on the 29th proceeded to the defendant's parents' home in Dighton, Massachusetts, where they located the involved vehicle, which is a 2021 black Lexus SUV. That vehicle was ultimately seized and taken back to the Canton Police Department, where it was processed by various factions of the state police.
3 days later, seized. 3 days later, was processed. The potential murder weapon that killed a Boston police officer, they're going to wait 3 days to process it, but not even tow it back to a state police crime lab where it could be processed. Or how about this? Call in a mobile crime lab and start processing that said murder weapon there. No, we're going to load it up on a flatbed in the elements, in the snow, drive it tow it 31 miles back to Canton in the cold, let it sit there for 3 days, and then we'll think about coming around to process it. That makes sense.
Their observations of that black SUV indicated a crack in the right rear taillight. They did speak with the defendant. She indicated that she had met with the victim at the C.F. McCarthy's bar in Canton at approximately 9 p.m. on the 29th, that he was there with several friends prior to her arrival. She stated the victim was consuming beer and she was drinking vodka sodas. She described the glassware she was drinking out of as a vase style. She stated she and the victim left C.F. McCarthy's and went to the waterfall, that she did not. She indicated to the troopers that she did not leave C.F. McCarthy's or enter the waterfall bar with a glass of drink. She stated that she and the victim were at the waterfall for approximately 1 hour. During that time, there were no altercations and no injuries, no cuts or abrasions that occurred with the victim. She indicated that they left the waterfall and were invited to the house on Fairview Road. She stated that she dropped.
And another thing that's kind of strange here, why do we go from processing the vehicle and now we're going to back up again and talk about things? So I want to pull up. Let me just find it here. Okay. On January 8th, 2023, Cohasset and state police detectives obtained and executed a search warrant on Mr. Walsh's Cohasset home and Volvo SUV. The basement of the home had 8 red-brown stains and initially tested positive for the presence of blood. In Mr. Walsh's Volvo SUV, specifically areas by the driver's side seats, controls, passenger floor mats, and rear trunk, there were additional positive results for the presence of blood. To me, it sounds like they went to Walsh's house, they processed the house, and they processed the SUV there. Why did they process it on Walsh's property? But if we go back and look, here's Karen's. This is a statement from the Commonwealth. The black SUV was seized from the driveway of the defendant's parents' home in Dighton on January 29th as well. The vehicle was then transported via a tow to the Canton Police Department. So I got a million things wrong there anyway with that. On February 1st, so 3 days later, members of the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab Service Station, a crime lab chemist, and Trooper Joseph Paul of the Mass State Police Collision Analyst and Recreation Section cars responded to the department. So why would they have not processed Karen's SUV in her parents' driveway, home, garage, wherever it is? Why would they not do that? Why would they have to seize it and tow it back to Canton and then process it 3 days later? It doesn't make any sense. Well, we know why they're doing that. You got to get the story straight. Got to get the story straight. Got to get everything lined up. Goes on to say, and now I want to talk about the drinking glass, this broken glass, because I find this very interesting as well and very inconsistent. They observed fragments of broken glass on the rear bumper of the vehicle. Okay, so if you observe broken glass on the rear bumper of the vehicle, you're going to tell me after the car was pitched up onto a tow, brought up onto a ramp, towed all the 31 miles from Dighton to Canton, offloaded on a flatbed, probably driven into a garage, that those pieces of glass just magically stuck to the magnetic bumper. So the glass stuck to the magnet that held it all the way from Dighton to Canton so they could process this. The rear right passenger side taillight was shattered and pieces were observed missing from the red and clear areas. On the right side of the rear tailgate, a deep scratch and minor dent were observed. On the right side of the rear bumper, above the small red light, 2 scratches were observed in one area where the paint was chipped off. Troopers from CARS unit performed a rapid acceleration, forward and reverse test with the vehicle and notified no deficiencies with the vehicle braking system or other operations. The troopers placed a training figure resembling a human, approximately 6 feet in height, behind the Lexus. The vehicle was operated by CARS trooper and documented with the vehicle video from the crime scene. The vehicle was placed in reverse and started to travel toward the training figure. The rear view camera with the vehicle was operating properly, displayed a screen in the center of the dashboard and provided 360-degree visual. As the Lexus traveled closer to the figure, both auditory and visual cues within the vehicle sounded off, indicating an obstruction to the rear. In addition, forensic scientist Maureen Harnett responded to the Canton Police Department to that date, was well observed, and took samples from the Lexus. She noted damage to the rear of the vehicle on the passenger side, including the dent and chip paint in the trunk door and a broken light and scratches on the bumper. Apparent here was noted on the rear passenger corner. Apparently glass was also noted on the rear bumper. Glass was noted. Now, what is the new narrative with all of that? And what have we been hearing about? The glass was embedded. It all of a sudden now it went from laying on the bumper, now it's embedded on the bumper. So again, the Commonwealth statement has changed on that as well. And let's hear this from Court TV.
We know that John O'Keefe was at a bar drinking with other friends and Karen Reed and left the bar holding his cocktail glass. He actually walked out with it, took it with him. And the district attorney, I have a clip here, is talking about how pieces of that glass were found embedded in the bumper of the...
Now, it never even said in the initial arraignment that they found pieces of this cocktail glass embedded in the bumper. It's not even in the initial Commonwealth's statement of evidence to have probable cause to arrest Karen Reed. But all of a sudden it went from pieces of glass on the bumper, now they're embedded in the bumper. So again, having to change the narrative to fit
defendant Karen Reed's car. Let's watch.
The damages to the right rear corner panel of the defendant's
Now
vehicle.
this is, and I forget what hearing this was because there's been so many of them, but you're going to hear Lally. He changes now, changes again. Not in the initial arraignment. Now all of a sudden things have changed.
Embedded within the bumper to that vehicle is...
Doesn't even say it. And he doesn't even say it in the first arraignment. Now it's changed.
Right rear corner panel of the defendant's vehicle. Embedded within the bumper to that vehicle is pieces of cocktail glass.
And you can hear him emphasize that now.
Let's watch.
Let's go back.
The damages to the right rear corner panel of the defendant's vehicle. Embedded within the bumper to that vehicle is pieces of cocktail glass. The victim, Mr. O'Keefe, is last observed on surveillance video, external surveillance video from the Waterfall establishment that he left just prior to going to 34 Fairview, with a cocktail glass.
Well, that's how they had to spin that narrative up. Well, let's check it out. We can look at the surveillance video. How are we going to really place this and put this all together? Aha! He left with a cocktail glass. Now we'll change the narrative and say we're going to embed the cocktail glass because he must have been holding it when Karen backed up or did a 3-point turn, 62 feet, 24.2 miles an hour, whatever the fucking Commonwealth statement is now, because it's changed 3 or 4 times. But if we can say that cocktail glass, that puts him together with the cocktail glass, is how it had to get there. It was there. It was sprinkled on top of it, but now it's embedded. A lot of things have changed.
His right hand, same arm that's injured, the same type of glass that is then recovered from the bumper of the defendant's car.
The same type of glass.
Professor Joe, this point of evidence, the pieces of the glass in the bumper, for you, does this support the state's theory?
Now, I want to bring this back up so we can go back and forth a little bit here. Let's just, maybe we missed something. We might have missed something. So I'm going to go back. We'll go back to the Commonwealth statement. All right, let's pull this back up. Black SUV was seized from the driveway. The defendant's parents all right, the vehicle is transported and towed. Members of master. Okay, we got that. So it says they observed fragments of broken glass on the rear bumper of the vehicle. So when I would say that, if those glass pieces were there, what you're saying to me is that that's how I would imagine it. They were on the bumper. So it went from on the bumper to now we got to embed them in there. We got to embed it in there. Now it's embedded. It's not on it. Now it's embedded. So where does that say that in the PCA? Maybe I'm missing something. Did I miss something? Maybe we'll figure it out here. Let's go back to this.
Perhaps because you're referring to a specific point of contact. Remember, they're referring to the arm. He's making this assertion.
Oh, and I love this thing too. This is the new one that I love. So when I read through all the comments on these little segments from Court TV, supposedly, ready for this one? Supposedly, the murder weapon is the cocktail glass. That's supposedly how Karen, she must have murdered him, sliced them all up, had John fall behind, and then she ran him over. Well, why is there no blood? There's no blood anywhere. You have snow on the ground. That would be my first question to all these conspiracy theorists. Okay, there's literally supposedly 6 drops of blood, but if someone was cut up with a cocktail glass, why is it not all over his face or on his neck? Oh wait, there was injuries to his face, boxer's injuries. How when they get the shit kicked out of him, but there's no lacerations on his face. Just his arm, just his arm. What we know where those came from, those are the dog bites. That's the funny thing that I always laugh about these comments. Oh well, yeah, that's the murder weapon. So she killed him by slicing his arm and then backed up over him. That's how it happened. The murder weapon was a cocktail glass. She must have got angry and said, "Oh, John, I hate you," and then this injury made him die, and then she ran him over. That makes a lot of sense.
That he's holding the glass in his right arm where these injuries, these so-called lacerations that they're referring to, he sustained. Here's the thing, is if you're saying that this is the same glass that was used in that establishment, I'd like to know how they're drawing that conclusion from a physical evidence standpoint. What kind of examination was conducted? Did they go and retrieve glasses from that same set at the bar and then compare the glass that they have? From a manufacturer standpoint, does it originate from that same point along the way? And for anybody that works in trace evidence, this is going to be key because you have to have something to compare it with. And where's the body of the rest of the glass?
Yeah.
If all the remnant that they
I said that earlier. Where is the rest of the glass? Let's see the photo. Let's put it out there. Where is the glass?
Perhaps is contained in that bumper where all of the pieces collected. And this is a messy scene because you're talking about snow here, Julie.
It sure is, Professor Joe. That's a great point. My understanding is that there were lots of pieces of that glass that had shattered found around John O'Keefe and
Wrong.
in the bumper. But we shall see. That's a great point.
Did she say in the bumper?
Keefe and some in the bumper, but we shall see. That's a great point. Did they substantiate that it is the exact same glass taken from the establishment? We know the Reed team is alleging that there was placement of the glass and tampering with evidence, which is why they've actually been successful in motioning the court to allow DNA sampling taken from investigators, because they're alleging that evidence was planted here. And why this really fascinates me, I would think it would be very tough to plant this kind of evidence. Professor, what do you think about that? Do you think it's possible to do it the way the defense is alluding it may have been done here?
Well, they can allude to it. And of course, their fallback position, I would think at least, is going to be, oh, well, these are law enforcement officers. They know how crime scenes work. They know how we process these scenes.
Well, no, I was making the point, and I agree, but I was making the point, and if you go back, if you didn't catch it, why did it sound like they processed Brian Walsh's SUV on the day of the search warrant at his house? They processed the home, they processed the SUV there. Why did they go and seize Karen's SUV from her parents' house in Dighton, then tow it all the way back 31 miles to Canton PD? We have the potential murder weapon that killed the Boston police officer. And it takes them 3 days to process that? I would think you would be instantaneously on that. I would think you would say, hey, we need a mobile crime unit here. Or, hey, how about this? Let's grab a camera and start taking some photos of this potential murder weapon. But we're going to tow it all the way back in the elements, in the snow, 31 miles back to Canton, hold it there for 3 days, and then process it. That makes a hell of a lot of sense.
And it can be alleged from that perspective, I suppose. They can put that forth for the jury to hear it potentially in court. And yeah, I mean, it's got some legs to it, I suppose. But again, is all of this going to marry up with the other injuries that this fellow sustained all over his body? Because they're alleging, you know, some of these injuries are not consistent with, say, a bumper strike on a body. That this on his body, it originates from other things, like there's the mention of a dog involved in this particular case. Yeah.
Right. I'm so glad you brought that up, Professor Joe. We have a picture of it. We were showing it while you were speaking just a couple of moments ago. The markings on the arm. Defense counsel for Karen Reed, they've, of course, been very public about their position on this case, and they made the allegations you just mentioned about, oh, was it a dog who lived at that house who bit him or scratched him? We have that clip. Let's roll it now.
He said that the medical examiner said this was not from an animal attack. I would highly recommend that Mr. Morrissey actually read witness statements before he starts pontificating about them. Here's what the medical examiner actually said. First, she said that she was unqualified to make a determination as to whether or not there were animal attacks. Does that sound familiar? Unqualified. And here's your actual statement. Quote, in this particular case, all I can say is that the injuries are there. I documented them, I measured them, but I can't tell you.
Sherry, have you seen the video? Have you seen my video? I'll play it for you in a second, but I want to go back to when I missed this in my first original part of the first bit of my presentation here. I want to go back to Jackson's response on the Google and Verizon data. And when we're talking about, in Brian Walsh's case, there was so much presented. In Karen's case, there was only one thing presented from the Commonwealth, but that was to implicate Karen in this case. And, you know, as we heard in the arraignment, that was never brought up. And things just evolved and they changed. But I want to go back to Jackson's response on the Google data. We'll go to that right after this. And then I will play at the end the enhanced video, so it actually shows when Karen made contact with John's FUV.
Ooh, okay, Dr. Michelle Dupree, tell us, please, listening to this, whose side do you think this evidence helps?
To me, looking at the photographs, these injuries do not look like they are from a cocktail glass. They do look to me more like they may be animal scratches or.
Well, she's smart. She's very smart. And I'm going to direct you again to my friend Melanie Little that did a stream with a dog training expert that actually trains police dogs on actually the proper way to apply a bite. In their training. You can go over and watch that video on Melanie Little's channel. Please go over and check it out if you haven't seen that. They did a nice, I think it was an hour and a half or 2 hours, and he actually supplies evidence of dog bites. And if you literally put these John's arm side by side with some of the photos that he shows, I mean, it's almost identical to German Shepherd dog bites.
Bites even, but a cocktail glass is going to break into multiple pieces. You have several iterations on this arm along, what, 10 inches maybe? That just doesn't make sense to me that it would be a cocktail glass.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. at autopsy, would a forensic pathologist like yourself be able to tell if those scratches happened on the same day that John O'Keefe was killed, or if they potentially were there a day or 2 or 3 prior?
Again, that very much depends. We can tell if the injuries were post-mortem. These do not look that way, but we can also tell an approximate time frame. If it happened within the same day, we may not be able to pin it down to the exact same hour, but if it did happen within the same day or 2, we should be able to tell that, yes.
Great information from you both. Big.
All right, so let me go back to Jackson's response to the Google, and I forgot about this earlier and I wanted to bring this up. So again, they did a motion for Brian Albert's Verizon and the AT&T, and then obviously they did the Google searches as well, and these were all the things that Jackson's Karen's team was asking for. Let's see, information to be produced in a cell phones in possession in or by Brian Albert between January 28th, 2022 and the present. We also had a copy of all information contained in any cloud-based accounts, any access codes or passwords to Verizon, to the security assistance team, copy of all call records, detail records, text messages, and there's some of Brian Albert's cell phone, all cell phone tower data and cell phone location information, GPS information, subscriber information associated with Verizon phone number. We go into complete copy of call records and all detailed records. So just everything on the cusp of getting all the information in that they need. Complete copy of detailed call records to be obtained by AT&T. Again, cell phone tower, phone records, GPS information, subscriber information. And then I'm going to read a little bit of this, and then I want to go to Jackson's response in court at the hearing on, hang on one second. Just get my tab up here. The hearing on May 24th, 2023. So we'll go here. In new revelations from Jen McCabe's cell phone must reverse the trajectory. Again, Hoslong to die in cold. Evidence obtained from the analysis of a complete forensic image of Jennifer McCabe's cell phone, which the Massachusetts State Police and Norfolk District County attorneys withheld from the defense for more than a year. For more than a year. Exculpates Miss Reed and divisively implicates Jennifer McCabe and Brian Albert in the murder of John O'Keefe, in spite of the fact that O'Keefe was found dead on a front lawn of the police officer Brian Albert, and a highly trained boxer and fighter who, with deep familiar and personal ties to the Canton Police Department and the Massachusetts State Police, law enforcement and utterly failed to treat Mr. Albert and his family members who were present in the night of question as suspects. Now, again, this is Alan Jackson's statement. Instead, the law enforcement immediately arrested Miss Reed based on no part on incriminating statements attributed by one of the actual conspirators in O'Keefe's murder, Brian Albert's sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe. As this court is aware, Miss Reed has always maintained that she dropped Mr. O'Keefe off at Brian Albert's residence located at 34 Fairview just after midnight on January 29, 2022, and he festily left without and when failed to answer any of her calls, presuming that he had proceeded into the house for a party. Okay, let's go to Jackson's statement in court during that May 24th hearing. And again, this is what I'm talking about. All this information left out by the Commonwealth, having to be discovered, actually being withheld for a year, for a year from Karen's defense team. Let's play Jackson's statement here during that hearing.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Jackson,
Yeah.
so go ahead and I'll hear you.
Thank you, Your Honor. With regard to the Commonwealth's argument, taking those in order, to reuse the same word that's been used and probably beaten to a pulp today, talk about a regurgitation of the same tired, factually incorrect theory. That's exactly what you heard today.
So I have to go back to, why was that all presented right up front? Brian Walsh's case, it's in the statement from the Commonwealth. We went back and looked at 6 times all those Google searches were listed. All the factual information to the Google searches were listed. We had location data, we had video placing him at all these areas and all this potential areas around his home of crime that potentially could be crime scenes. But then we go back to the statement, the Commonwealth statement in Karen Reed's case. How many times do we hear anything about Google searches in that statement? One time. And that was the frantic moment when Karen is trying to save John's life by providing him CPR. And then in all of that moment, everything that has gone up, everything that has led up to that exact moment right there, in her mind is just going to pop up and look at Jen McCabe and say, hey, take your phone out and Google. And they said, I think they said, she said it twice, in Google, how long is it to die from hypothermia? It doesn't make any sense to me. Absolutely zero sense.
It's exactly what Mr. Lally has been reciting. He literally read it from a paper that he's clearly had for some time. It's the exact recitation of the same facts that he's used over and over and over, and they are factually incorrect. He indicates none of the facts that we've cited in our moving papers are supported by any evidence. That's absolutely incorrect. That's absolutely incorrect. For instance, Jennifer McCabe. He said Jennifer McCabe was not up all night. There's no evidence whatsoever that Jennifer McCabe was up all night, except for her Apple Health data, which shows that she was up all night. We didn't make that data up. That data came right from a cell phone extraction that was conducted in no small part by their own expert, and then reconducted by our own expert. How about the fact that she was actually on the phone searching? The Safari data establishes that not only was she up all night, but that the phone and Safari was being manipulated during those times at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Welcome in, Jessica. Thank you.
These are unassailable facts, unassailable data, directly from the Celebrite extraction. These aren't, as Mr. Lally likes to say, fanciful facts. He's got that written down somewhere, obviously. He said that at just about every hearing. There's nothing fanciful about any of the facts that we've submitted and have supported with affidavits and evidence. The Commonwealth's theory, quite to the converse, is supported by nearly nothing. Nothing. Everything that we've suggested is supported by the data, the evidence, and the facts. The Commonwealth's theory is supported by conjecture and really bad policing. Almost
Jackson can't even believe it.
Very troubling.
Jackson can't even believe that he's standing here right now. You know, like, this is so preposterous in his mind. I mean, he's just like, what the hell? I mean, look at his kind of his tick there. He's like, I can't even fucking believe that I have to talk about this. It's so preposterous.
Is supported by conjecture and really bad policing.
Right here.
Almost unbelievably and very troubling as an officer of the court. Mr. Lally provides a brand spanking new expert yesterday. We didn't have any of the information concerning this new expert. Quite frankly, I haven't even committed her name to memory yet. I don't even know it. It's Hyde, Hyde. First time I've ever heard of Jessica Hyde was yesterday while I was on the plane on my way here. That's when we received that information. And lo and behold, Mr. Lally springs that on us today and starts reciting her factual conclusions and opinions. That is wildly inappropriate, wildly unfair. We haven't had an opportunity to look at her report, to review it in detail, to have our expert compare his notes to her report. What I will tell you is that what Mr. Lally said about her report is not quite true. He didn't quite get that right either. What she actually said is why the timestamp is listing the time of 2:27 and 40 seconds in the morning is unknown. Her words, not my words. That's what she said about the timestamp. That her conclusion is the reason for the definitive timestamp is.
And this is where I have to point out too. I want you all to remember this. Okay, these are just hearings. This is to get things on the records, to get through motions, to get through procedures. If this goes to trial, this is like a warm-up. It's like a warm-up. Can you imagine these three wonderful attorneys when they get in front of a jury and present all of this? There is so much reasonable doubt. There is so much cover-up in this case that it's going to get so exploited to a jury if this goes to trial.
Unknown to her. Well, we know why it is, because we've had more time to distill it. There's something, and I'll take this opportunity since Mr. Lally brought it up and tried to explain what his theory, an incorrect theory of the timestamp is. I'll take a minute to explain what the actual.
You know, and this is the thing, you know, we need that Fed data. We need the Fed to come in and step in. You know, it was a clear example during the hearing the other day that Commonwealth is going to push for this case hard. It's very clear. I mean, you even heard Yannetti at the end on the hot mic. He said, just as I expected. This is just what we expected. You know, they are pushing hardcore for this to go to trial. And in my opinion, they're going to lose. Commonwealth's going to lose. There's so much reasonable doubt. There's so much cover up in this case. Once the jury gets all the facts in front of them and sees everything, there's no way. There's no way.
Actual true facts are. An Apple iPhone has a clock in it. It's an internal, actually has two internal clocks. One of those internal clocks is run by a program known as Apple COCOA core time. The Apple Cocoa core time is the number of seconds from January 1st, 2001 until right now. So for instance, if I open my phone, which I just did.
I love this right here.
Apple Cocoa core timestamp just noted the exact moment that I just opened my phone. And it's noted from January 1st, 2001. Right now, actually in 2022, in January of 2022, those numbers of seconds was around 665 million. About 665 million seconds had passed between January 1st at midnight, 2001, to January 29th, around midnight, around 2:27 in the morning, on January 29th, 2022. Why is that important? Because their expert, Mr. Garino, indicated, oh, well, you can't rely on the timestamp of how long to die in cold, because that's at the exact same time as the Ozark basketball webpage was brought up. So something must have gone wrong. I don't really know what it was, but it must have been something. Well, what we would do, had we had an opportunity to cross-examine Mr. Garino, is perhaps explain to him that which he doesn't know, which is the following. More than one web page can be up and open on a cell phone at any given time. The court knows this. Everybody who owns a cell phone knows this. You can have multiple pages open. One page is sitting on top of the other, and then there are multiple pages behind it. All those pages are still open and potentially running in the program in the iPhone. The 227 how long to die in cold search was nanoseconds, milliseconds.
Yep.
Before the Ozark basketball search page came
Kind of tells you like things that are going through people's minds too. You know, when you go through like their browsing history, their search history, how people think and what they're thinking of, it's really strange. I mean, go back and look at your browsing history, how your brain just is sometimes all over the place. But I don't Google things like how long to die in cold. You know, I don't do things like that.
How did Apple Cocoa core time relate those two events, those two artifacts on the phone? It happened like this. At some point, she searched, used her thumbs. The Apple iPhone doesn't coordinate the timestamp for when she's using her thumbs. People type faster, people type slower. It coordinates when someone exits out of a search.
Yep.
In other words, when you close that web page. She obviously Google searched how long to die in cold. We know that because we found the search. The deletion was not the deletion of the search, it was the deletion of the page. And as soon as that page was deleted, the other page behind it, Ozark basketball, was immediately populated. And when I say immediately, not at the same time, nanoseconds behind it. We actually have the nanoseconds. It's 5 digits beyond the decimal point. We know exactly how that happened and why it happened. And Rick Green, our expert, has verified that, not through one, not through two,
5
different tools.
5
Establishing exactly how long that it took for the Ozark page to populate behind.
Now, why is all this, again, I got to go back to the initial state of the Commonwealth. Why is this all left out? It was all hidden for a year. All this information was out there because it wouldn't fit the Commonwealth's narrative that Karen Reed killed John O'Keefe. It wouldn't fit the narrative.
The how long to die in cold page once Jessica McCabe exited out of that page, if that makes sense. So we know that she was Googling how long to die in cold at minimum, 3 hours before John O'Keefe's body was ever found. This is not some anomaly. It's not a question. It's not, as their new expert says, unknown why the Google search took place or the timestamp is what it is at 2:27:40. We actually know. Rick Green knows. His colleagues know. And the scientific community knows. Mr. Lally also said, Jennifer McCabe, she didn't delete anything. This stuff just happens. Well,
Yeah.
Stuff just doesn't delete itself on an iPhone. Everybody that has an iPhone, every 4-year-old that has an iPhone knows that stuff doesn't just delete itself. That's not how iPhones work.
Exactly.
Everything that was deleted was concentrated into a time period. It was concentrated on or around January 29th, 2022, at or around 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., throughout the day on the 29th, and up until she turned that phone in on February 2nd, 4 days later. Those deletions weren't coincidental. They were done by her. 18 separate calls were deleted. There were 7, by the way, and I will address counsel's statements about Brian Albert and his phone in just a second, but it dovetails into what I'm saying right now. In terms of the conversation,
Oh, no, they got everything.
the counsel talks about, what he said was there was no.
They got everything on Brian's phone. They get everything on his phone. They know he used that iPad. They have all the search data from there. They have location data from where Brian. It's all in the statement from the Commonwealth. Everything is there. I urge you to look out, check out Brian's statement from the Commonwealth, or PCA. I call it PCA. Let me pull it up really quick. Everything is there. That's why I wanted to do the stream. Why was there so much extreme detail in that, but so much left out in Karen's? I mean, it goes into everything. Where he was, where he was located, where his cell phone was. It's all in there. I highlighted Google searches because I wanted to kind of get on that today, but this is all the Google searches. It says where his phone was, says where Anna's phone moved. Right here. Let's see. Surveillance video from Vin Liquor shows Mr. Walshe alone exiting the vehicle, bypassing the liquor store and disposing items in the dumpster. Data from this device shows that it traveled across the street to the apartment complex where the device was detected around the dumpsters. They have everything in this. And there's nothing in Karen's case. All right, let's finish up with Jackson, then I will play the video of the backing up.
Conversation between Brian Albert and Jen McCabe on the 28th or the 29th. He's just wrong about that. Just ignoring the facts. There were 7 phone calls. One of them at 6:24 a.m.
That was my point in all this.
Was unanswered.
Yep, absolutely.
The other 6 were all answered. And there were conversations. They were in some cases not just seconds, but minutes long. So there is evidence that McCabe and Albert were communicating back and forth to one another. That's why it's important that we verify what those communications were and how long they took, and what other communications might exist on Brian Albert's phone that weren't sanitized by Jennifer McCabe before she turned her phone into the authorities. There were also phone calls, not to Brian Albert, but to Nicole Albert at 6:07 and 6:08 in the morning that lasted, 6:03 and 6:04 in the morning that lasted 9 seconds and 7 seconds respectively. Those calls were answered. Brian Albert's call wasn't answered. But previous to that call that Brian Albert ignored, there were 2 calls to his wife who would be sleeping next to him at that time. Now, 9 seconds and 7 seconds isn't very long. It's not long enough to say, oh my God, you guys get up, hurry out here. We just found John O'Keefe's body in your front lawn. It's not long enough to say that and to have a conversation about that, but it is long enough to say something like, listen, we're here. Don't come outside. It is long enough for that. And in fact, as we know, Nicole Albert and Brian Albert, a sworn police officer, never came outdoors, even though the entire world of law enforcement and medical personnel and first responders were responding to his front yard where a dead body was.
Okay, I'm not going to play all of this. I know that we've watched this a lot, but I just wanted to make my point about Google searches today and what Jackson had to uncover. I mean, a year that was held back for almost a year to Karen's team, and then to bring it forth to get it on the record for this hearing. What I'm going to do here is I'll wrap this up with the enhanced video that I put together quite a few, wow, this is probably 2 months ago, December 15, 2023. I did an enhancement of Karen leaving John O'Keefe's house that night. If you haven't seen it, I'll play that for you. Then we'll wrap up this stream, because I know a couple of people in the chat said they did not see it. So it's got a little bit of commentary here. I'll sit back, let you watch this, and then I'll give you kind of my final thoughts on everything. Hey, everybody. Brian here from the LTL True Crime Podcast. And what I've done here is enhanced the video of Karen Reed backing out and hitting John O'Keefe's SUV on her way back to 34 Fairview. I just played this recently in a live show with Tom CPU. We did some commentary over it. I'm going to drop that video as well. I've cut that down into a little clip and you'll see that launch. But I wanted to, I had COVID here really bad. I was trying to do this full screen so everybody can see it. And what I'm going to do is play through the video, do some pausing and talk a little bit about it. We can go through it here a couple of times, but I wanted to give you a better perspective and a better angle of what went on that night. And you can actually see Karen hit John's SUV, see John's SUV lunge forward, and you can see Karen's SUV lunge forward. When she leaves John's driveway, you can see that her light is out where she made contact with John's SUV. All right, let's play through the video here. Crack. This sample is from Court TV. I just enhanced it. So you can see her backing out. You're going to see it in large. Bam, right there. You can see the contact. And I'll put some arrows in here so you can see it. Let's back up. I was so sick with COVID when I did this, I remember. There it is right there. You can see the contact with John's SUV and Karen's SUV. Lunge forward. We'll do it again. Thank you. You can see it. Let's go back again. Bam, right there. And if any of you have Twitter or any socials or anything like that, I'm going to drop the link. Copy that, share this. You know, let's show the deniers, all the deniers out there that say that Karen never made contact with John O'Keefe's SUV. She clearly did. I mean, this is what this video is showing. But, you know, tweet this out, put it on your socials, share it with your friends, your family, share it with the people that deny the truth. I think this clearly shows it, and I think that this will be something here that you know, the court, Karen's team will put together for a presentation if this goes to court. I'm sure they will do something like this. Maybe they'll go back one more time, and then we'll play through. Bam, right there. See Karen's. Now what we're going to do is play through here as you see Karen's SUV leave John's driveway, and you're going to see that light out on the rear passenger side. Check this out. And I've enhanced that as well. You'll see the enhancement here come into frame. Keep an eye on that tail light. And right there, bam, tail light is out. You can see it there. Driver's side is fully and illuminated, and this passenger side is fully intact. Is out. It's cracked. Driver's side fully illuminated. Passenger side is out. Let's back up and we'll play it again. You can see it come into frame here, right there. Bam. Passenger side out. Driver's side fully illuminated. So that's where she made contact with John's SUV. We'll play through here. You can see it right there as well, too. Just as those bright lights come off,
Jules, we have a fan.
And the normal running lights turn back on. You have the passenger side where it made contact out. and fully illuminated. I'll let you all respond on the driver's chat. Let's watch her pull out, and then we'll rewind it. We have a fan. All right, let's go back. We'll go back again. This is real time. And one more time, and then I'll give you a full playthrough. All right, now this is just the full playthrough. You can see it right there, where she makes contact and the car moves forward. Right there. Boom. Okay, let's do a full playthrough of the video, and then I'm going to wrap this one. They're saying that Karen, in midst of all the things that she was going through, the extreme stress that she was going through, that she supposedly looked up while performing CPR, looked at Jen McCabe and asked her to Google how long to die from hypothermia in the cold. Who the hell on earth would think that in that situation, to look at their friend and say, take your phone out and Google this for me? That doesn't make that makes no sense. 0 sense. One up. Here we go. And I'll share this video again if anybody wants to post it. I'd appreciate it. Post it on your socials. Get it out there. Let's let people know the truth. One more playthrough here, and then we'll wrap this one up. Yep. You're right, Scott. See it make contact right there. Bam. One more time. And that's it. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you think that Karen Reed? All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Oh, by the way, in about, I really would appreciate it. Let's see. After this live closed down, it's going to take you over to a premiere. It's going to redirect you. So just hang out here as this closes out. You'll probably have to hit the play now button. But in about 15 minutes, I'm going to have a premiere on my channel. I appreciate if you would watch it. It's going to happen right after this video. So that's going to close up this live for today. I appreciate you hanging out on this Saturday morning with me. I will be busy for the rest of the day and the evening. Tomorrow, I'll have Brian Coogan on to talk about Nicholas Rossi. We're going to get back into that this week as well. And also, I reached out to the behavior analyst YouTube channel, and they're allowing me to use the Nicholas Rossi episode where they analyzed his body language. They're allowing me to go through it and commentate over it. And I want to thank Scott on that channel for returning my email and getting back to me and allowing me to use that video here on my channel. So I will be doing a live about that this week as well. So we'll get back into Nicholas Rossi. And then obviously Brian Walshe will be back in court in about 2 weeks. I'll be covering more of that. And then, we'll see what happens in Karen's case. We know that the feds are supposed to get their information over in the next couple of days. Hopefully we hear something there. We have Aiden getting out in less than a week. So he will be back in the fold and back in the mix. which is great. And I'm excited to see him get out and get back on his channel and finally get an opportunity to talk to him. Again, I've talked to him a few times while he's been in jail, and him and I are actually coordinating something here for the end of the March. It's going to be big. It's going to be great. And we will have more details about sharing more details on that soon, as when he gets out, we can coordinate some time. So thank you all for being here this morning. If you're just coming in, make sure to go back and watch this on replay, but hang out here. In about 5 minutes, I have a premiere. It's going to take you right over to that. And I would appreciate if you watch that premiere through, give it some thumbs up, some interaction and comments. And I will talk to you all soon. Everybody have an amazing day. And I appreciate all of you. I love all of you. Thank you for supporting LTL True Crime. And I will see everybody here soon. Have a great day. Bye, everybody.
LTL True Crime, we go deep in the dark. Peeling back the layers, expose the hidden marks. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie. Getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL True Crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned, we dive into the prime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL True Crime, unveiling dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL True Crime, we going deep in the dark. Peeling back the layers, expose the hidden march. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie. Getting in the minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL True Crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned, we dive into the prime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL True Crime, unveiling dark realities every time. LTL True Crime, we go deep in the dark. Peeling back the layers, expose the hidden marks. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie. Getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL True Crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned, we dive into the prime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL True Crime, unveiling dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL True Crime, we going deep in the dark. Peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie. Getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL True Crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned, we dive into the prime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL True Crime, unveiling dark realities every time.